Is civility necessary for societal flourishing? What is the relationship between individual happiness and the common good? Is it possible to peacefully address social and political differences? And if so, what role can we play as individuals to help achieve this? All of that and more in today's video. Is civility important for social cohesion? Well, the question might seem silly at face value. Civility does, after all, seem to be the basis of civilization, even linguistically. There is actually far less consensus on this matter than one might initially think. While most ideologies agree that peace, harmony, order, and internal stability are necessary end goals for society, there is substantial disagreement about whether civility, understood here to mean respectful, charitable, honest, and just interactions between people who may disagree, is a useful means to that end. The political philosophy of liberalism, which dominates most of the West, generally promotes the freedoms of speech, press, petition, assembly, and religion, thereby encouraging pluralism and non-preferential treatment towards diverse demographics. A variety of other philosophies across the political spectrum, however, maintain that civility can actually be bad for society. These ideologies maintain that civility, in their view characterized by soft speech and forced tolerance, weakens the power of the state to maintain unity, empowers social dissidents to corrupt and undermine commonly shared culture, and leaves a nation susceptible to foreign interference. How might one respond to claims that civility undermines social cohesion? Well, let's begin by starting where we agree: the importance of the common good. As previously mentioned in my Living the Good Life video, Plato argues in his famous book The Republic that man's flourishing cannot be considered independently of the social units to which he belongs. Since man is by nature a social and political animal, man's happiness is inherently tied, at least in part, to the flourishing of society at large. Plato also argues, as mentioned in my channel trailer, that unless a government properly understands for what purpose the state exists, and how best to direct the state towards that end, the government will pass back and forth between opposing factions who both act out of self-interest and lust for power, ultimately driving society to political and economic ruin as the genuine needs of the state are neglected. Supporters of ideologies suspicious of civility may respond that these arguments by Plato actually bolster their beliefs. Doesn't civility promote a dangerous kind of individualism that undermines the common good and limits the power of government to act with a consistent, unified vision? Doesn't civility hold liberty to be a higher good than social cohesion? If we go by Plato alone, that might be a plausible interpretation. However, I'd like to supplement Plato's views with the positions of a number of other philosophers, starting with his student Aristotle. In his book on political philosophy, Aristotle argues that political philosophy is, at its core, the science of ethics applied to society at large. In other words, just as ethics is about cultivating virtuous habits that help one to flourish by acting in accord with his nature, political philosophy is about ordering social units in such a way that society is directed towards flourishing through the fulfillment of its nature. That said, just as an individual's flourishing can't be considered outside of the social units to which he belongs, neither can society's flourishing be considered without factoring in the nature of the smaller components that comprise it. This does not mean that we should treat all morals as subjective and let people do whatever they please. That would be anarchy. But it does mean that we can't ignore the individual good of smaller components of society for the goal of promoting the common good. The common good won't be truly good if it contradicts the nature of the units which comprise it. I'd also like to reference the views of the philosopher Karol Wojtyła, a man who became famous for challenging authoritarian communism in the Eastern Bloc during the final years of the Cold War, after he ascended to the throne of the papacy, becoming John Paul II. According to Wojtyła, part of the common good is preservation of the equal personal dignity that each person inviolably possesses. When individuals, factions, or the state act contrary to the personal dignity of the individual, whether it be through arbitrary detention, unjust seizure of goods, reduction of the individual to a state of abject poverty or slavery, or unjust taking of one's life, it violates the common good by wounding the relationality and kinship between men that form the basis of interpersonal relationships within society. In other words, man is a political animal only inasmuch as he is a social animal. Therefore, if the social foundations of interpersonal relations break down because people no longer respect each other's equal personal dignity, society will not thrive. It is imperative to recognize that there are certain human rights which transcend the state, such that no government can infringe upon them in the name of the common good. So, how does respect for human dignity relate to civility? Here it might be helpful to reference two principles that Vitae references often in his philosophical writings. Solidarity, a cultivated virtue that enables humans to work towards the common good, and subsidiarity, a manner of organizing society such that local customs, traditions, and needs are respected and nourished. Many ideologies tend to see the good of smaller units as somehow being opposed to the good of the collective. However, Vitae maintains that the best way to achieve the common good is by allowing people to attend to their personal goods in a manner consistent with local customs and traditions, keeping in mind that it is necessary to contextualize that pursuit within the boundaries of our shared common humanity, objective human nature, and ethics. People can differ, therefore, on practical solutions to problems or how they'd like to see their local communities organized. But society can still flourish with these differences, provided that local customs don't violate ethics or human dignity. So, what does this mean for civility? Well, if the foundation of a healthy society be that people respect each other's equal dignity, then respect, honesty, charity, and justice towards people with whom we might disagree is a requirement for social cohesion and the common good. No matter how aggressive a given society's attempts may be to enforce ideological homogeneity, disagreements between citizens will always inevitably exist. While it is necessary to stand up for human rights, framed within an objective understanding of ethics, it is also necessary to respect legitimate differences with compassion and humility. Failure to do so will lead to neglect of individual needs, heated power struggles between self-interested factions, and the consequential undermining of the common good. What can we do as individuals to help cultivate civility? This video serves as the introduction to a series on my channel called Civility Matters, which will explore this topic in much greater depth. For the purpose of this video, however, I'd like to leave you with one concrete recommendation: unplugging from toxic media. How often, when you turn on the TV or the radio, or scroll through your social media feed, do you see people dehumanizing people they disagree with? Why does this dehumanizing tendency seem so prevalent today? Well, news broadcasts, pundit talk shows, and social media algorithms all promote content that they believe will keep people engaged and coming back for more. Even though it makes us feel bad, we can easily become addicted to anger and outrage because when we are taught to fear someone because they are not just wrong, but evil, and out to get people like us, we feel a sense of empowerment when we get angry at perceived enemies alongside like-minded individuals. However, regularly indulging in this kind of tribalistic anger instills a vicious habit of wrath within us that can lead to hatred, intolerance of legitimate differences, and even intellectual blindness to points of view that contradict one's own. If you're curious to see how toxic media might be impacting you, then just as an experiment, if you're willing, try to unplug from media of this nature for 2 weeks to see how it impacts your overall mood and perception of reality. You may be surprised. So, what do you think? Is civility necessary for social flourishing? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you can be notified when new videos are released. Also be sure to like this video so that YouTube recommends it to others. If you'd like to support this channel for as little as $1 a month, you can also become a supporter on Patreon. Links in the description of this video. I look forward to the philosophical journey ahead with you. While it may seem at times like promoting civility is an uphill battle, just remember that, even if a single individual's impact is small, Every action we take to make a positive difference in the lives of those around us leaves the world a slightly better place. Perhaps one day, by many people doing small things with great love, we can transform the world. Peace be with you. This has been The Philosopher.